The fog is lifting. Clarity is calling you forward. Welcome to Forward in Freedom. I'm Tanya Johnson. This is where awareness becomes power. Let's move forward in freedom.
At some point, you stopped caring about people and started carrying them. Their stress became your stress. Their instability affected your peace. Their emotional reactions started influencing your decisions. And the exhausting part, you probably thought that meant you were loving well. But what if the real reason you feel emotionally drained all the time is because you've been carrying an emotional weight that was never yours to hold? And once you begin recognizing this pattern clearly, you can't unsee it. Emotional over caring rarely begins with bad intentions. Most of the time, it begins with survival, responsibility, or being the person everyone depends on. You become known as dependable, supportive, emotionally available, understanding. And over time, you slowly become emotionally responsible for keeping everyone else okay. Being emotionally strong is one thing. Being emotionally responsible for everyone else is something entirely different. And many people don't recognize the difference until exhaustion starts showing up everywhere in their life. You start feeling drained after conversations, heavy after interactions, emotionally overloaded before your day even begins. Wow. Not because you don't care, but because you've been emotionally carrying too many people at once. At work, this often looks like becoming the emotional stabilizer for everyone else. You absorb tension before meetings, manage emotional atmospheres, carry pressure that was never assigned to you. And eventually, people begin relying on your emotional labor without even recognizing it. In families, you become the calm one, the dependable one, the person expected to absorb stress quietly while everyone else unravels emotionally around you. And after a while, you stop questioning whether any of it should have belonged to you in the first place. Some people were praised for surviving emotionally unhealthy environments, not protected from them. I had to learn personally that constantly carrying people emotionally does not create healthier relationships. As a matter of fact, it creates exhaustion. One of the most dangerous parts of emotional overcaring is how quietly it disconnects you from yourself. Your emotional energy becomes consumed with monitoring moods, tension, reactions, emotional shifts, instability. You become highly aware of everyone else while slowly becoming disconnected from yourself. And eventually, you stop asking, what do I need? Because your focus stays locked on what does everyone else need from me. That imbalance creates exhaustion that sleep alone cannot fix. You can lose yourself trying to keep everyone else emotionally afloat. Support says, I care about you. Self neglect says, I'll abandon myself to keep you okay. And many people don't realize they cross that line until resentment, emotional fatigue, or burnout starts appearing. You know this line has been crossed when your peace disappears whenever someone else is upset. You feel emotionally responsible for fixing discomfort. You absorb emotional pressure immediately. You struggle to separate compassion from obligation. And over time, your nervous system begins treating everyone else's emotional state like your responsibility to regulate. That is too much weight for one person to carry. Caring deeply should not require disappearing emotionally. Healthy emotional boundaries do not remove compassion, they remove unhealthy emotional ownership. You can care deeply, listen fully, support consistently, show empathy, be present without emotionally absorbing everything happening around you. That's emotional maturity. Not becoming cold, not becoming detached, but learning the difference between supporting someone and emotionally becoming responsible for them. A coworker is overwhelmed. You support them professionally, but you do not absorb responsibility for stabilizing their emotions. A family member is disappointed by your boundary. You remain respectful, but you no longer abandon your own needs to relieve their discomfort. Someone you love is struggling emotionally. You care deeply, but you understand their healing cannot survive on your exhaustion. The moment someone else's emotions start controlling your stability, the boundary has disappeared. If this episode is putting language to patterns you've been silently carrying for years, this is exactly the kind of work we unpack through clear direction coaching. Because many people know they're exhausted, but don't fully understand what's emotionally draining them. If you are ready to strengthen your emotional clarity, communication, and boundaries, you can book a 15-minute consultation at www.cleardirectioncoaching.com. And if relationship dynamics are part of your journey right now, the Gathering Alliance Relationship Assessment is a powerful tool to help you recognize unhealthy emotional patterns more clearly. But recognizing the pattern is only the beginning. The real challenge begins when you stop emotionally overfunctioning and the people around you notice. Once emotional overcarrying stops, certain dynamics stop functioning the same way. The person who constantly unloaded onto you notices your emotional availability shrinking. The coworker who relied on your emotional labor notices you're no longer stabilizing every situation. The relationship that depended on your constant accommodation starts experiencing resistance, not because you became unkind, but because access changed. And this is where many people begin feeling emotionally conflicted, not because they stopped loving others, but because they stopped abandoning themselves in the process. Some people felt some people felt safest when you were emotionally overextended. So what does emotional freedom actually feel like? Let's unpack that question. As emotional overcaring begins healing, you start noticing something powerful. You no longer feel responsible for stabilizing every emotional atmosphere around you. You begin recognizing that compassion and emotional ownership are not the same thing. And slowly, you stop disappearing emotionally just to keep other people comfortable. Most people learn very early that keeping peace requires self sacrifice. So they became experts at reading the room, managing reactions, preventing tension, emotionally accommodating everyone around them. But eventually, that creates exhaustion instead of connection. Because a real connection cannot survive when one person constantly disappears emotionally to maintain it. And this is where spiritual clarity becomes important because God never asks you to carry people in a way that destroys your own peace, your own identity, or emotional well being. Support people. Yes. Love people. Absolutely. But losing yourself by trying to emotionally sustain everyone around you was never the assignment. Sometimes discernment is recognizing what belongs to me emotionally and what does not. And there's freedom in finally understanding the difference. God did not call you to emotionally disappear so someone else could remain comfortable. Watch what happens the next time someone around you becomes emotionally overwhelmed. Pay attention to your first instinct. Do you immediately move into fixing, absorbing, explaining, rescuing, emotionally stabilizing? Or can you remain compassionate without emotionally taking over? Because emotional maturity is not measured by how much pressure you can absorb. It's measured by how grounded you remain while pressure exists around you. Being compassionate and being emotionally consumed are not the same thing. Consider the people or environments that leave you emotionally depleted most often. Now think deeper. Have you been offering support or offering access to your emotional stability? And if you stop emotionally caring what never belonged to you, what will become lighter in your life? What will become healthier? What would finally become possible? I think a lot of people are going to resonate and recognize themselves in this conversation, especially those who haven't spent years being the strong one, especially those who have spent years being the strong one, the dependable one, emotionally available one. So I want to hear from you. What part of this conversation hit the hardest for you? And what emotional pattern are you starting to recognize differently after listening today? I've been reading your comments, and many of your insights are helping other listeners feel seen in ways they haven't been able to explain before. And if today's episode brought clarity to something you've been silently carrying for a long time, this might be the right time to go deeper. I encourage you to book a 15-minute consultation through www.cleardirectioncoaching.com. You can also explore the Gathering Alliance Relationship Assessment and my book, A Woman's Exodus Only by Grace. All the resources and links are available in the episode notes. Next week, we're talking about something many people experience during growth, but rarely discuss openly. Why does becoming healthier sometimes feel lonelier at first? Why do some relationships weaken once you stop overfunctioning? And how do you know whether you're outgrowing a dynamic or grieving the version of yourself that kept it together? That conversation is going to hit deeply for a lot of people. I'm Tanya J, and this is the work of walking forward in freedom. Until we meet again, move forward in freedom.